They switched my call to the right place after a couple of wrong tries, and I got him finally. "Look, Boyne, this is Hal Jeffries." "Well, where have you been the last 62 years? He started to enthuse. "We can take that up later. What I want you to do now is take down a name and address. Ready? Lars Thorwald, 525 Benedict Avenue, 4th floor rear. You got it?" "4th floor rear. Got it. What's it for?" "Investigation. I've got a firm belief you'll uncover a murder there if you start digging at it. Don't call me for anything more than that. Just a conviction. There's been a man and wife living there until now. Now there's just the man. Her trunk went out early this morning. If you can find someone who saw her leave herself, marshaled all out like that, and conveyed to someone else, a lieutenant of detectives above all. It did sound flimsy, even to me." He said hesitantly, "Well, but—" Then he accepted it as it was, because I was the source. I even left my window out of it completely. I could do that with him and get away with it, because he'd known me years. He didn't question my reliability. I didn't want my room all cluttered up with dicks and cops taking turns nosing out the window in this hot weather. Let them tackle it from the front. "Well, we'll see what we see," he said. "I'll keep you posted." I hung up and sat back to watch and wait on events. I had a grandstand seat. Or rather, a grandstand seat in reverse. I could only see from behind the scenes, but not from the front. I couldn't watch Boyne go to work. I could only see the results, when and if there were any. Nothing happened for the next few hours. The police work, that I knew must be going on, was as invisible as police work should be. The figure in the 4th floor windows over there remained in sight, alone and undisturbed. He didn't go out. He was restless, rolling from room to room without staying in one place very long, but he stayed in. Once I saw him eating again, sitting down this time, and once he shaved, and once he even tried to read the paper, but he didn't stay with it long. Little unseen wheels were in motion around him, small and harmless as yet, preliminaries. If he knew, I wondered to myself, would he remain there quiescent like that, or would he try to bolt out and flee? That mightn't depend so much upon his guilt as upon his sense of immunity, his feeling that he could outwit them. Of his guilt I myself was already convinced, or I wouldn't have taken the step I had. At 3 my phone rang, Boyne calling back. "Jeffries? Well, I don't know. Can't you give me a little more than just a bold statement like that?" "Why?" I fenced. "Why do I have to?" "I've had a man over there making inquiries. I've just had his report. The building superintendent and several of his neighbors all agree she left for the country to try and regain her health early yesterday morning." "Wait a minute. Did any of them see her leave according to your man?" "No." "Then all you've gotten is a second-hand version of an unsupported statement by him, not an eyewitness account." "He was met returning from the depot after he bought her ticket and seen her off in the train." "That's still an unsupported statement once removed." "I've sent a man down there to the station to try and check with the ticket agent if possible. After all, he should have been fairly conspicuous at that early hour. And we're keeping him under observation, of course, in the meantime, watching all his movements. The first chance we're going to get to jump in and search the place." I had a feeling they wouldn't find anything, even if they did. "Don't expect anything more from me. I've dropped it in your lap. I have given you all I have to give, a name, an address, and an opinion." "Yes, and I've always valued your opinion highly before now, Jeff." "But now you don't, that it?" "Not at all. The thing is, we haven't turned up anything that seems to bear out your impression so far." "You haven't gotten very far along so far." He went back to his previous cliché. "Well, we'll see what we see. Let you know later." Another hour or so went by, and sunset came on. I saw him start to get ready to go out over there. He put on his hat, put his hand in his pocket, and stood still looking at it for a minute. Counting change, I guess. It gave me a peculiar sense of suppressed excitement, knowing they were going to come in the minute he left. I thought grimly, as I saw him take a last look around. "If you've got anything to hide, brother, Now's the time to hide it. He left. A breath-holding interval of misleading emptiness descended on the flat. A 3-alarm fire couldn't have pulled my eyes off those windows. Suddenly the door by which he had just left parted slightly, and 2 men insinuated themselves, one behind the other. There they were now. They closed it behind them, separated at once, and got busy. One took the bedroom, one the kitchen, and they started to work their way toward one another again from those extremes of the flat. They were thorough. I could see them going over everything from top to bottom. They took the living room together. One case one side, the other man the other. They'd already finished before the warning caught them. I could tell that by the way they straightened up and stood facing one another frustratedly for a minute. Then both their heads turned sharply, as at a tip-off by doorbell that he was coming back. They got out fast. I wasn't unduly disheartened. I'd expected that. My own feeling all along had been that they wouldn't find anything incriminating around. The trunk had gone. He came in with a mountainous brown paper bag sitting in the curve of one arm. I watched him closely to see if he discovered that someone had been there in his absence. Apparently he didn't. They'd been adroit about it. He stayed in the rest of the night, sat tight, safe and sound. He did some desultory drinking. I could see him sitting there by the window, and his hand would hoist every once in a while, but not to excess. Apparently everything was under control. The tension had eased, now that the trunk was out. Watching him across the night, I speculated. Why doesn't he get out? If I'm right about him, and I am, why does he stick around after it? That brought its own answer. Because he doesn't know anyone's onto him yet. He doesn't think there's any hurry. To go too soon, right after she has, would be more dangerous than to stay a while. The night wore on. I sat there waiting for Boyne's call. It came later than I thought it would. I picked up the phone in the desk. He was getting ready to go to bed over there now. He'd risen from where he'd been sitting drinking in the kitchen and put the light out. He went into the living room, lit that. He started to pull his shirt tail up out of his belt. Boyne's voice was in my ear as my eyes were on him over there. 3-cornered arrangement. Hello, Jeff. Listen, absolutely nothing. We searched the place while he was out. I nearly said, I know you did, I saw it, but checked myself in time. And didn't turn up a thing. But... He stopped as though this was going to be important. I waited impatiently for him to go ahead. Downstairs in his letterbox, we found a postcard waiting for him. We fished it up out of the slot with bent pins. And it was from his wife, written only yesterday from some farm up country. Here's the message we copied. Arrived okay. Already feeling a little better. Love, Anna. I said faintly but stubbornly, You say written only yesterday? Have you proof of that? What was the postmark date on it? He made a disgusted sound down in his tonsils. At me, not it. The postmark was blurred. A corner of it got wet, and the ink smudged. All of it blurred? The year date, he admitted. The hour and the month came out okay. August, and 7:30 p.m. It was mailed at. This time I made a disgusted sound in my larynx. August, 7:30 p.m., 1937 or 1939 or 1942. You have no proof how it got in the mailbox, whether it came from a letter carrier's pouch or from the back of some bureau drawer. Give up, Jeff, he said. There's such a thing as going too far. I don't know what I would have said. That is, if I hadn't happened to have my eyes in the Thorwald flat, living room windows just then. Probably very little. The postcard had shaken me, whether I admitted it or not. But I was looking over there. The light had gone out as soon as he'd taken his shirt off. But the bedroom didn't light up. A match flare winked from the living room, low down, as from an easy chair or sofa. With 2 unused beds in the bedroom, he was still staying out there. Boyne, I said in a glassy voice, I don't care what postcards from the other world you have turned up. I say that man has done away with his wife. Trace that trunk he shipped out. Open it up when you've located it, and I'll think you'll find her. and I hung up without waiting to hear what he was going to do about it. He didn't ring back, so I suspected he was going to give my suggestion a spin after all, in spite of his loudly proclaimed skepticism. I stayed there by the window all night, keeping a sort of death watch. There were 2 more match flares after the first, at about half-hour intervals. Nothing more after that. So possibly he was asleep over there. Possibly not. I had to sleep sometime myself, and I finally succumbed in the flaming light of the early sun. Anything he was going to do, he would have done under cover of darkness and not waited for broad daylight. There wouldn't be anything to watch for a while now. And what was there that he needed to do anymore anyway? Nothing. Just sit tight and let a little disarming time slip by. It seemed like 5 minutes later that Sam came over and touched me, but it was already high noon. I said irritably, "Didn't your lamp lad know what I pinned up for you to let me sleep?" He said, "Yeah, but it's your old friend Inspector Boyne. I figured you'd sure want to." It was a personal visit this time. Boyne came into the room behind him without waiting, and without much cordiality. I said to get rid of Sam, "Go inside and smack me a couple of eggs together." Boyne began in a galvanized iron voice. "Jeff, what do you mean by doing anything like this to me? I've made a fool out of myself thanks to you. Sending my man out right and left in wild goose chases. Thank God I didn't put my foot in it any worse than I did, and have this guy picked up and brought in for questioning." "Oh, then you don't think that's necessary?" I suggested dryly. The look he gave me took care of that. "I'm not alone in the department, you know. There are men over me that I'm accountable to for my actions. That looks great, don't it? Sending one of my fellows one half a day's train ride up into the sticks to some godforsaken whistle stop or other at departmental expense." "Then you located the trunk?" "We traced it through the express agency," he said flintily. "And you opened it?" "We did better than that. We got in touch with the various farmhouses in the immediate locality, and Mrs. Thorwald came down to the junction in a produce truck from one of them and opened it for him herself, with her own keys." Very few men have ever gotten a look from an old friend such as I got from him. At the door he said, stiff as a rifle barrel, "Just let's forget all about it, shall we? That's about the kindest thing either one of us can do for the other. You're not yourself, and I'm out a little of my own pocket money, time and temper. Let's let it go at that. If you want to telephone me in the future, I'll be glad to give you my home number." The door went whoop behind him. For about 10 minutes after he stormed out, my numbed mind was in a sort of straitjacket. Then it started to wriggle its way free. The hell with the police. I can't prove it to them. Maybe. But I can prove it to myself, one way or the other, once and for all. Either I'm wrong or I'm right. He's got his armor on against them, but his back is naked and unprotected against me. I called Sam in. Whatever became of that spyglass we used to have when we were bumming around in that cabin cruiser last season? He found it someplace downstairs and came in with it, blowing on it and rubbing it along his sleeve. I let it lie idle on my lap first. I took a piece of paper and a pencil and wrote 6 words on it. "What have you done with her?" I sealed it in an envelope and left the envelope blank. I said to Sam, "Now, here's what I want you to do, and I want you to be slick about it. You take this, go in that building 525, climb the stair to the 4th floor rear, and ease it under the door. You're fast. At least you used to be. Let's see if you're fast enough to keep from being caught at it. Then you get safely down again, give the outside doorbell a little poke to attract attention." His mouth started to open. "And don't ask me any questions, you understand? I'm not fooling." He went, and I got the spyglass ready. I got him in the right focus after a minute or two. A face leaped up, and I was really seeing him for the first time. Dark-haired, but unmistakable Scandinavian ancestry. Looked like a sinewy customer, although he didn't run to much bulk. About 5 minutes went by. His head turned sharply, profile-wards. That was the bell poke right there. The note must be in already. He gave me the back of his head as he went back toward the flat door. The lens could follow him all the way to the rear, where my unaided eyes hadn't been able to before. He opened the door first, missed seeing it, looked out on the level. He closed it, Then he dipped, straightened up. He had it. I could see him turning this way and that. He shifted in, away from the door, nearer the window. He thought danger lay near the door, safety away from it. He didn't know it was the other way around. The deeper into his own rooms he retreated, the greater the danger. He'd torn it open. He was reading it. God, how I watched his expression. My eyes clung to it like leeches. There was a sudden widening, a pooling. The whole skirt of his face seemed to stretch back behind his ears, narrowing his eyes to mongoloids. Shock, panic. His hand pushed out and found the wall, and he braced himself with it. Then he went back towards the door again slowly. I could see him creeping up on it, stalking it as though it were something alive. He opened it so slenderly, you couldn't see it at all, peered fearfully through the crack. Then he closed it, and he came back zigzag, off balance from the sheer reflex dismay. He toppled into a chair and snatched up a drink. Out of the bottle neck itself this time. And even while he was holding it to his lips, his head was turned, looking over his shoulders at the door that had suddenly thrown his secret into his face. I put the glass down. Guilty! Guilty as all hell, and the police be damned!